Never say you can't do something, or that something seems impossible, or that something can't be done, no matter how discouraging or harrowing it may be. Human beings are limited only by what we allow ourselves to be limited by, our own minds. We are each the masters of our own reality. When we become self-aware to this, absolutely anything in the world is possible. Master yourself, become the king of the world around you. Let no odds, chastisement, exile, doubt, fear, or any mental virus prevent you from accomplishing your dreams. Never be a victim of life. Mike Norton. The thing is that we are all victims of this society. Essentially we are. Our education system, the way we're kept permanently in debt, everything that this system does to curtail human potential is there. One of the most uncomfortable issues for them to face. The reality is that there's a great many people who go through this existence living their life as a victim. And if you look a little deeper, what you find is that in such cases, people are generally victims of themselves during their own lives. I mean, sure, we tend to judge other people through our lives because we're programmed to do it, but we very often don't notice just how much we are judging ourselves along the way. But you get to a point in life where you think, why does everything go wrong? It's a kind of a love-hate relationship that you develop with yourself during the youthful part of your life. Very often people develop this type of relationship with themselves, unless they can go and immerse themselves in some business or some company or some career or apprenticeship or whatever, to gain that sort of focus and have that goal to achieve. Many people who go through school and think that all of this stuff's meaningless and it's really all about living the life, generally get to a point halfway through their life or through their youth where they really wonder what it's about and wonder if they're simply a misfit and perhaps they should have gone and got that career that all their friends were getting in high school. Of course, many people don't pursue these careers because it just seems so wrong to them. It seems so unnatural. It feels to them that they are stepping so far off their path and they wonder why they should ever have to do such a thing. And so they go and step onto their path in life and they find some way of making it through. But then they find themselves struggling an inordinate amount compared to what their friends are, and they wonder if they made the right choice. This is sort of the situation that I was in when I was a teenager. I was working as a musician, but I was also wondering why I couldn't be like other people. And this is very often the case for most of the youth and even people early in adulthood. They go through a certain crisis point where they really wonder if they are on the right path. And if you really step back and look at this, what you begin to realize is that all of this is due to programming. You know, when I was young, the invention of the television really changed life in my house. It really did. And when I look back on it and I see what television did to influence myself, to influence my family, and to influence people around us, it really is quite remarkable. You know, all of the social visions that I had of what society could be, all of these come from the television, and generally this will be the same for most people out there. Most of the standards that you set for yourself come from the images that are portrayed to you on television. You know, television portrays a very, very different world to the real world. You know, even when you're looking at a city on television, it just looks different on film. You know, you see a place on screen and they get it from the right camera angle and they get the people with the right lighting on them, and things look larger than life. They look too real to be real, and you find yourself immersed in situations more than you would be immersed in real life situations. And again, this is done usually from the lighting and the camera angles, and there's all sorts of subliminal programming that goes into the way they set these scenes up in the movies. And you'll find that just watching a movie that you don't even think has any programming in it, just watching some comedy show on TV, if you can really look at the subtext of the show, the comedy show or the movie or whatever it is you're watching, look at how the scenery is set up. Notice what's on the desks, notice the furniture in the room, notice the decorations in the rooms that they use, notice the clothes people are wearing, notice the body language when they interact with each other, and notice the underlying themes of the conversation, how they are influencing your thoughts and your opinions. The mainstream media has brought this to a fine art. For example, you notice when you watch the news, there's always two anchor people there, and when they have a story that is particularly interesting, at the end of the story they'll have a little conversation with each other, a couple of quick quips. Someone may comment on, gee, what a terrible story that was, and how people must feel whatever about it, and the other anchor person will nod their agreement and have their little quip. And that will instill that mindset into the minds of the viewer and assure the viewer that this is the way they should also be thinking about this if they are to be perceived as an intelligent person. Because, of course, the newsreaders are very intelligent. I mean, look at them, the way they dress, and they sit there all prim and proper with their very nice news voices. And apart from the story that they have just given you, they've also given you their impression, and they present this vision of what society is and how you should think about what they just told you. And all of these things are designed to influence our view of the society around us and essentially our view of ourselves. And this filters down into influencing how we judge ourselves and how we judge the people around us and the people we come into contact with. I mean, just look at the fashion that the young kids wear around today. But there's always this need to fit into a certain group or fit into a certain scene or to make some type of individual statement. You know, people often believe they are the way they dress. That is who they are. This is my package. This is how I present myself. This is who I am. And very often they miss out on themselves along the way because they're attempting to be something that they're not. They think that they have to be something. They have to be this image of themselves that they have in their mind before they will be deemed successful according to their own standards. It's a weird kind of a programming that we put ourselves through, but what we do very often through all of this is we miss out on our lives. We miss out on the development of our true selves. And that is why we judge ourselves poorly, because we never reach these standards that we set for ourselves. We have this vision which is unobtainable, which comes from the television anyway. It's not who we are. And really, if we were just comfortable with who we are and we focused more on being that, we would find that we would probably be quite successful in our lives, because really, being who we are is what we came here to do, not all the other stuff. That's just a distraction, and that's why it's there. And many of these goals that we aspire to really don't mean anything anyway. We have all these visions of where we should be, but once we get there, we realize that it's really just the same as where we were. Now that we've got the golden egg, there's nothing really there, so we may as well have looked at ourselves for the journey anyway, and may as well have stayed on our own path. And that's what many people are afraid of doing when they're young, is staying on their own path and being true to who and what they are. You know, people judge themselves poorly because they have these visions of where they should be, but it's always according to someone else's parameters. So if you're in a situation in your life where you're having these doubts about yourself and about what you should be doing, about who you are, perhaps you just need to really look inside yourself and examine what you really want to do. Because what you want to do is what you should be doing. And you may think that there are all sorts of barriers in the way of what you want to do, but ask yourself, how many of these barriers are you putting there yourself? Because very often, if you look a little deeper, you'll find that many of them don't exist. These are just fears that you have of stepping outside of your comfort zone. And don't feel bad about it. I mean, we all have these fears and reservations, but sometimes we just let them control our lives and overwhelm us. And again, this is because people have a stake in the outcome. People have a stake in the outcome because they have this vision of what the future should look like. You know, people who want to go on a holiday, they want to leave the country and go and do something, they believe that if they work really hard, they'll be able to do this. And they get themselves in a position where, okay, they find a good job that gets a good wage, and so they move into a unit nearby the job, and then they've got to pay rent, and then of course they've got to get to work, so they buy a car or purchase a vehicle of some kind so they can get to work, and then they find that they have to put fuel in the vehicle in order to get to work. So they find that they bought the vehicle so that they can get to work, and the work that they're doing is basically paying for the running costs of the vehicle and the running costs of the unit that they rented. So the whole thing cancels itself out by default, and they are left with a small amount left over with which to feed themselves, and then they're able to put away a pittance every week in the hope that they may save up and hopefully do what they want to do. But all of that energy they're putting into this event is really just perpetuating the cycle, because everything is supporting everything else. The unit and the vehicle you acquire in order to be able to perform the work, but everything that you gain during the work only supports the running costs of the vehicle and the unit. If there's somewhere you want to go and something you want to do, I suggest you just go and do it and see what happens. But find yourself if you get outside of your comfort zone.